Okay, my intent is really just to talk to you a little bit about presentations. And if you ever hear anybody say that they're a good presenter, don't listen to them anymore. Because nobody's really a good presenter. There are some people who present well, and that's really based upon their expertise and their understanding and knowledge of the things that they're presenting. So we're going to start today by talking about Steve Jobs, late Steve Jobs, who was, in my estimation, somebody who presented well. He really understood what he was presenting. He practiced and practiced and practiced and became very good. At the end of that, I'm going to talk to you a little about 10 aspects of presenting that I think you should focus on as you prepare to present before potential funders. Now, my experience, and the reason I think why they asked me to do this, other than that they didn't want to do it themselves, is that I have worked on Wall Street for many years and presented to many investors. I also had the opportunity to start a few companies of my own, and the last company that I started raised about $450 million by going and presenting the idea of our company to large institutional investors and hedge funds. And before that, started a securities firm in New York City where we raised about $2.5 billion doing the same thing. So to the extent that catching big fish is a function of presenting well, I've got some experience there. Most of you guys are looking for some smaller fish, and there are some unique changes that you'll need to adjust your business plans to make sure that you accommodate that. So
today, we're introducing 3 revolutionary products of this class. The first one is a widescreen iPod with touch controls. The second is a revolutionary mobile phone. And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. So, 3 things. A widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
he set up one thing that he wanted the audience to walk away with. What was the one thing? Today, what? Apple reinvents the phone. The first smartphone to come out with any significant capability, certainly on the internet. So he set the theme and the outline. Every presentation that Steve Jobs does the same thing. Whether he's introducing the iPad, the iPhone, or some other things.
It's called Time Capsule. And what it is, it's really clever. It's a backup appliance.
Everything that he talks about, he opens the definition, then he talks about it, then he closes the definition when he's done.
A perfect companion to Leopard, and that's the first thing I wanted to share with you this morning.
He walks down his calendar of the things he's going to talk about. He opens them verbally, says specifically, now I'm going to talk to you about this product. When he's done talking about it, simply closing it up. There are direct connections to this type of behavior and this type of presentation and how your brain works. Your brain seeks closure, seeks summary, tries to connect the neurons inside your brain in such a way as they remember. There's actually little proteins that are formed as he's doing this to get the synapses to hold together, creating a long-term memory. And he uses those neurological cues to be able to get you to remember exactly what he's talking about. But he speaks with enthusiasm. Steve Jobs is not putting his head down, not looking through notes. His presentation is known very well. He's tested all the technology. He knows it's going to work. And he knows where he's going from step to step and never questions. His vocabulary is awesome and upbeat.
Is extraordinary. You can browse the web with it. It is the best browsing experience you've ever had. It's phenomenal to see a whole web page right in front of you, and you can manipulate with your fingers. It's unbelievably great. Way better than a laptop. Way better than a smartphone.
You have any question as to his conviction about this product that he's selling? But it's not hollow conviction either. He genders a level of trust so that when he says those things, you're not thinking, yeah, he's just blowing smoke. You're thinking that it's really true because he's delivered before and he's surprised everybody. And so now he can use those kind of introductory phrases in positive terms to cast a net that is going to make an expectation that he's going to deliver again.
We have sold over 2 million iPads. We sold 2 million in the first 59 days. That's 1 every 3 seconds. 8,500 native iPad apps in the App Store, which is really great. Of course, the iPad can run over 200,000 of the iPhone apps that are there as well. And these 8,500 native apps have been downloaded over 35 million times. And so if you divide that by those 2 million iPads out there, that's about 17 apps per iPad that have already been downloaded. That's a great number. In the first 65 days, users have downloaded over 5 million books. And that is about 2.5 books per iPad, which is terrific. The other interesting thing is the 5 of the 6 biggest publishers in the US who have their books on the iBookstore tell us that the share of ebooks now that are going through the iBookstore is about 22%. So iBooks' market share now of ebooks from these 5 of these 6 major publishers is up to 22% in just about 8 weeks. And as we ship more iPads, that number is just going to keep going up and up and up.
Yeah, we'll get to this at the end of the presentation, but Jobs was masterful at presenting numbers that mattered. Without a doubt, new presenters are trying to educate a customer base or educate an investor base on what they have learned. You've got to stop that. You're never going to educate them. They don't care about being educated. They're investing in your company because you know what you're talking about. All you need to do is give them the confidence that that's true, and then you win it if you need to use a lot of numbers in the question and answer section of your presentation. Cease to throw reams and reams of numbers up on your presentations. Won't matter, won't seal the deal. Just use the numbers that are truly meaningful, and we'll talk about how to get to that meaningful in just a minute. Be really simple. Jobs explained the Apple ecosystem very simply. And the reason why he was able to do that is because he understood his business in such great detail that he was able to simplify it. You've got to understand your business so well that it's easy to discuss it simply. That's the determination of whether you really know what you're talking about. Not that if you know all the detail, but if you can simplify it. In his case, he said, look, we find that people who buy our iPods are buying iPads and buying computers. In fact, 73% of the people who buy a MacBook Pro buy it because they've had a previous warm and loving experience with one of their other more menial applications, like an iPhone or an iPod or an iPad. So this relationship, this ecosystem that he's built has been the most powerful tool that Apple has in driving additional sales in their product line. Be creative.
So thin, it even fits inside one of these envelopes that we've all seen floating around the office. And so let me go ahead and show it to you now. me take it out here. This is the new MacBook Air, and you can get a feel for how thin it is. Yeah, there it is.
The best spent 30 seconds in any presentation was the time he slowly took to unwind the little red cord, open up the end of the envelope, slowly slide it out. And you know he was wanting to pull that thing out a lot faster, but slowly slid it out, put it up on his hand so you could just see the edge of it and see, man, this is no bigger than an iPad. Now, iPad hasn't come out yet, but it's very, very small. The creativity and the storytelling is an extremely powerful application. Now, Jobs is an interesting fellow, but his penchant for rehearsing was extreme. He would get his colleagues together, he would get a secretary together who he valued her opinion because she's the only person who actually would tell him the truth, and then eventually his wife would do the same thing. But you need to rehearse over and over again. Rehearse with people who don't know anything about your business plan, and if you can't make it make sense, it's not simple enough. Don't add more to it, cut more out. And get it to the point to where it is simple enough for you to pull anybody off the campus walkway, present to them, and they understand it. Don't make it complicated, make it simple.
But we do have one more thing.
End of every presentation Steve Jobs does, there's one more thing. Sometimes it was a major product introduction, and sometimes it was something relatively small. But you always anticipated at the end of a presentation he'd say, but there's one more thing. It's like the commercials, they say, but wait, if you order now, you get 15 of these little washing thingies, which you didn't want the first one in the first place, but now since you get 15 of them, you go ahead and order them. But wait, there's something else. You notice in a presentation, usually you get down to the wind down point and you're like, I want to get off the stage, and the people who are judging are like, I want him off the stage. But when you have that last hook of, but wait, they wake up. And they say, oh, there's something else? What is this new thing? And you get their attention again right before you end. That's a very powerful tool. And he does a great job at that. So let's adapt your presentation to what Steve Jobs would say. We're going to go through 10 things. And for every person like me, there's a different list of 10. But these are 10 things that Abram and I talked about earlier today, and I think it's perfectly consistent with the most appropriate applications for presenting to a group of potential investors. People who have had no experience with your business plan before, aren't experts in the subject area, and are hearing this for the first time. The first thing is, follow an organizational structure, but lay out the take-home message at the beginning. You may lose these guys in the next 2 minutes. You got to make sure that what you really wanted to tell them has been told them on the first slide. Give them the take-home message. Be specific. What is your business? I have some students who come into me and say, well, I'd like you to hear my business idea. I universally will stop them, and I will say something like this. You have 2 minutes to tell me to prepare yourself, and then you have 30 seconds to tell me what your business is about. That's it. So I just step back, let them sit there for 2 minutes to try and figure it out. And as soon as they're done with 30 seconds, they're done. And one of you is smiling because you came and she started to present to me. I said, doesn't matter. I stopped her halfway through. You got to be more simple. Cut it down. If you can't drop it in 30 seconds, you're going to confuse people. You're going to get them involved in this winding circular motion of trying to be educated by you as what your business is. If you know enough about it, you can simplify it. If you can't simplify it, you don't know enough. So the take-home message up front is critical. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you're going to need in terms of money. Tell them what you expect to give up in terms of ownership. And then lay out the organization of the business plan from there on out so that they'll know what to expect. Your business plan is expected to solve a problem. It's not likely that that problem is one that is acutely felt by everybody in your judging pool or in your potential investor pool. So you need to state the problem in such a way as to where it creates meaning for them. Don't fall into the trap of assuming that if you have a product that people need, that they will invest in it. That never happens. Only products and projects that are wanted get funded and get purchased. You've got to move them from needing it to wanting it. If you can't do that, it won't be successful. After the problem, state your solution. Don't overpromise. You may, but are very likely to not be the next Microsoft. In fact, I've had at least 20 students who told me that their business plan was going to be the next Microsoft, and it didn't become it, and it's not likely to be it. Be reasonable. Be rational in your expectations and lay out exactly how it solves the problem that you previously stated. Business model. How do you make money? Be simple and precise. Now I'm going to lay out an example for you. I started a small company called Prometheus Energy Company in 2002. All we did is we took landfill gas, which is nasty, dirty, disgusting stuff, and we took it and we cleaned it up and we turned it into 99% pure methane, and then we froze it, turned it into a liquid, and then we put it in the trash trucks' diesel tanks and they used it as fuel. Now the reality is there's $17 million in technology behind that process that I just explained to you in 20 seconds. And with that simple explanation and drawing it on a piece of paper, we raised $450 million. We never, ever once went through our whole presentation. We got to that discussion slide, which is a little line, and explained exactly what I just went through. That's where we ended. Be really, really simple. State the business model in such a way that they can see, oh, I see how you make money. And then they want to see, oh, how scalable is this? Am I looking at a pizza joint in Laie that is going to support you and your family? Or am I looking at a scalable business that has the potential to be expanded Laie, Kahuku, Punaluu, then the rest of the world? But state your business model very clearly and extremely simply. You're going to think you're a lot more unique than you probably likely are. Don't overstate your case. State the relative uniqueness. If you have a competitive advantage, make sure it's truly a competitive advantage other than the fact that you're smarter than everybody else in the room. So be blunt, be open, be honest, but don't overstate your case. Put together a simple marketing and sales plan. Relatively simple. How are you going to get your business out there? Do you have the skill sets to be able to do this? We'll talk about team here in just a second. But a beginning business really relies on the heart and the hard work of its founders. As you grow and as you get larger and larger, you'll be able to pay for other people to come in who have skill sets that you don't have. And a lot of the founders at that stage sort of step aside and let more professional people come in. But understand how that process is going to work, especially as it relates to marketing and sales, because for the most part, this is the professional application that we just don't have. We don't have this skill set typically. Projections. Do projections. Don't put a slide up there with your spreadsheet on it. It's an absolute waste of time. Talk about how your company makes money, how you're going to grow your company, what that means in terms of numbers. You see Steve Jobs and how he uses meaningful numbers? Find the numbers that are meaningful. Don't try and dazzle them with your Excel skills, because trust me, their Excel skills are infinitely better than yours. So just come up with some pretty basic numbers for what drives the business. Again, your detailed knowledge of your business is going to allow you to simplify this in such a way as to be where you can be really compelling with the people that you're dealing with. Your team. Now, I love you guys dearly. You're dear friends of mine, and I love being at this university. But you have no experience. And that's totally okay. Just don't sell yourself as having more experience than you do. Sell yourself for what you really can pull off and what you would like to do in terms of the future of the little enterprise that you're working with. Talk about the team that you have. Talk about openly the holes that you have. Because money that comes into your firm is going to acknowledge that you're going to have some holes, and they're going to provide some capital to be able to fill those holes. Don't try and fill them all now. Just acknowledge that you know where the holes are, and you know that the money that you're bringing in will be able to help you execute to be successful. Provide some sort of a timeline. How are you going to get to what you're talking about? What are the objectives that need to be hit? Don't fill your slide up with a bunch of data points. Talk through the story. Talk through the story so people understand it. When you're done with that, you get to the point where you're at the end, you've been through your 10 minutes, you spend a minute on each slide. 80% of the presentations I've seen never do this. What's the ask? You're there for a presentation to raise money. What do you want? Be blunt. Be open. Don't be a pig. You're young, very little experience. What is your idea? Are you an idea? Are you a technology? Are you a firm? These are three really different things. An idea is something that you think is really cool and you really have no idea how to pull this off. But with some money you could put together a team and actually make it into maybe a technology. From a technology, it becomes something that's proven. You've taken away the technology risk so an investor can come in there and say, hey, I know it works. How do we make a business out of this? That requires an additional extra money. And then you become a business. And you become a business that investors can put money into and they can grow it. They can expand it. They can scale it. Those are three different stages that require very different type of people to invest in them. Make sure you know which one you are. And don't say you're a business if you're really an idea, or maybe even a technology. Be real clear about where you are in that stage, in that cycle, and make sure that what you're asking for is consistent with exactly where you are. That again requires that you know your business really, really well so you can simplify it. Now in the final analysis, an investor is going to come to you and say, I like it. I'd like to invest. Have a sense for what your value is, because they're going to ask you, how much are you willing to give up? And for that you need to really understand, well, am I an idea? In which case I'm going to have to give up a lot. Am I a technology? I've proven this thing, I know it works, so I'll give up not a lot, but probably a good chunk. Versus, am I a business, which you'll have to give up a lot less. And the money that will be used to grow your business and expand it significantly into various markets. So know where you are, be really simple in your presentation, definitely nail it with the ask at the end, and make sure you ask for exactly what you want. If you're really clear in these things, you're very likely to get what you're asking for, and you may be really surprised. I was stunned. We met with Harvard Management Company, which is, they manage the Harvard Endowment, and we sat with them. I had some friends who worked there. We sat down with them for a few minutes, and we had a $10 million commitment by the time we walked out of there. And I walked out and got in the elevator and thought, was it really that easy? But we were hyper prepared. And we were able to simplify our idea down to the point to where anyone could understand it. And I think that's the key thing. Understand it really, really well so that you can simplify it. It's not about complexity. It's not about educating these people. What you need to do is simply compel them. And then you'll get your ideas to work really well. Anyway, I'm happy to take 10 minutes of questions if you're interested. But I would love to help in any way I can with any of your presentations or your business plans. I'm not on the judging committee, so I can help you all you want. So, thank you. Yeah?
Can you give an example of this ask part?
The ask?
Yeah, an example.
I can indeed. We sat down in front of Harvard Management Company and we said, we have a technology that works. We'd proven our technology on a very small scale in a little landfill in British Columbia. And we sat down with them and said, we need $10 million to do a full-scale plant. And so the ask was, we need $10 million. We're willing to give away 20% of the company. We need it in one block. In other words, not tranched out into different pieces. And we need it by Friday. That's the ask. It came Monday, but that's all right. I didn't quibble. So, yeah.
Do we really need to implement this in this business plan competition? I didn't know that we're giving away a portion.
That's not my. I was just told to talk to you about how to present to investors. I don't know why you'd be here if you're not trying to get money, but that's just me. Okay. Any other questions?
When you were describing your 10 areas to cover for the presentation, I think there was a little bit called repetition, and I might have missed what you said about that.
Oh, probably because I didn't say anything about it. I probably just skipped over it because I'm so in love with the projections part. Go back to the projections part quickly. Really, please don't put a spreadsheet in your slide. It would be so disappointing. Competition. Don't discount the competition that you have. Be blunt and open with what their strengths are and what their weaknesses. You tend to do better if you overstate their strengths, because people want you to be objective. They don't want you to, here you are starting this new company and here and there's an existing player in the market. You don't want to go in there and say, yeah, well, their thing's no good. You know, be bold and open about their strengths. Don't be afraid of them. You can compete with them, but don't underestimate the competitive forces, because people will always want you to be bold and open and honest with what you're stepping up against.
Would you address your competitors in that section?
Yes.
Do you also want to bring out your uniqueness about why you would be successful?
Absolutely. If they're different than your competitors, and you've also got the uniqueness in your presentation under 5, but if your uniqueness is specifically compared to your competitors, absolutely. They do this, we do this. In the case of this energy company that I was talking about, there were some competitors that used a different technology, and I was able to say, well, this technology uses gas separation. We use cryogenics. The beauty of that is that we get much greater yield out of cryogenics than you do out of gas separation. That was an easy sell. Yeah.
Do we need to mention the financial statement?
Financial statement you definitely need to mention under your projections. But the reality is, as soon as you put a spreadsheet up on your slide, the remaining audience that hasn't fallen asleep will immediately enter a no man's land to which they will never return from.
With the slides, you were saying that you need to spend about a minute per slide, or?
It depends how good you are, but how much time do you spend per slide?
So if you only have like 6 or 7 minutes, then you probably don't want like a whole lot of slides.
Yeah. What I would do, and what I always do, is you want them to ask the questions that you're going to nail. You don't want them to ask the questions that you're confused about. So prepare your presentation in such a way as to lead to an answer but don't give it, and make it be an obvious one, so that when they ask that question you just nail it and deliver really, really well. But leading to your point of what to do on amount of time per slide, I don't have a clue. But don't give the impression that you're flying through this to get to a deadline. Jobs never looks hurried. And turn it into more of a conversation and less of a, okay, I've got 6 minutes, here you go, ready, start. And you're racing from the beginning of the presentation to the end. If you're in that point, start kicking slides out and slow it down. Your presentation is not simple enough if you're rushing to get through it. Simplify it some more. Yeah.
How did you split it up between presenting by yourself or presenting with a teammate?
Yeah, that's really hard. I always presented, and I took somebody with me, and he was one of the founders of the company as well. He was a lawyer, and we also took our chief tech. Did I say liar or lawyer? He was a liar too, but no. So he was a lawyer, and then we also had our chief technology officer, who's the guy who invented all this technology. And it's pretty clear when you need to step in, but it's also nice to have somebody who is the arbitrator in the discussion. And that was typically me, and I would just turn to, if it was a legal question, I'd say, well, Kurt, what do you think? Or I'd say, oh, John, can you explain the technology in more detail? That's great. But, you know, the whole, now I'm Joe. And then you step up and talk, and then you step back. That's a little bit contrived, and makes for a little bit of a jerky presentation. If you have one person who can present it all, 2 people who can present it and make the transitions feel easy and natural, that's good. But if you have 5 people in your team, send 3 of them to McDonald's and let the other 2 do it. All right. Anything else?
No, it wasn't about presentation.
All right. Hope that's helpful. Good luck. Yeah.
Sorry. When you're presenting up there, if your company, if you have like something that reflects your company that you would wear, would you go for that, or would you want to present it something more like what you're wearing more professional?
Be a little more specific. Are you talking a bikini or a lava lava or what?
Or like a shirt that has like your logo, or a hat that has your logo.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't distract from the presentation. You know, if you've got a nice blue shirt and the logo on it, there is a tendency to feel like you need to overdress. I would be overdressed for most presentations. Business, in particular entrepreneurial business, has become much more casual. When I first moved to Washington, I was openly told by the venture capital community I had to dress down because nobody would trust me. So, and I love suits, so I love to wear suits, but I had to learn how to dress down and be comfortable with it. But you know, it's always better to dress up and don't wear something that's going to distract the presentation away from what you're saying and to the, boy, I wonder how she got away with that color, you know. So, be careful. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Great.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.